Hello dreamers, my name is Hallucynations. If you are an OG, you know every day I would be posting about dangerously hot topics that is going on in the world right now to spread awareness on how our future will be. And today dreamers, our topics will be global food insecurity, water shortages, water wars, child labor in global supply chains, refugee crisis, and border abuse. Global food insecurity, water shortages, water wars, child labor in global supply chains, refugee crisis with border abuse are not separate issues. They are deeply connected symptoms of an unequal, stressed world system. Each of them harms the most vulnerable while feeding longer-term instability, injustice, and environmental breakdown. For global food insecurity, about 295 million people in 2024 were acute food insecurity across 53 countries, driven by conflict, climate shocks, and economic instability. Even before that crisis, over 3 billion people could not afford a healthy diet, and more than 2 billion lived with moderate to severe food insecurity, showing that hunger is not only about war zones but also everyday poverty and high prices. With nearly 360 million at risk of acute hunger in 2026, including millions in conflict-affected areas like the Middle East, the global food system is failing its most basic promise, feeding people without violence or exploitation. While water stress is rising as climate changes alters rainfalls, agriculture drains rivers, and infrastructure crumbles or gets targeted in war. In some regions, dams, droughts, and political disputes over shared rivers increasingly trigger conflicts around the local areas, accusations of weaponizing water, which researchers call forms of aquacide. Even without full-scale war, water shortages, including hunger, and even increases hunger, sickness, displacement because crops die, sanitation fails, and communities are forced to move in search of drinkable water. Around 138 million children worldwide are engaged in child labor, with nearly half doing hazardous work in mines, farms, workshops, and fishing communities. About 70% of child laborers work in agriculture, the very sector that feeds the global food system. Yet many of these children are invisible to consumers thousands of kilometers away. Complex, opaque supply chains make it easy for companies and governments to avoid responsibility, even when products are linked to exploitation and unsafe conditions. Refugee and migrant cases are also global emergencies, with millions fleeing conflict, hunger, and repression only to face violence and abuse to borders. In Europe and other regions, report documents beatings, illegal pushbacks, denial of asylum, and systematic mistreatment by state officials, often in the name of security or border control. Instead of offering protection, some borders become traps, places where people are pushed into dangerous routes, exposed to exploitation, or even returned to the very dangers they escaped. How these issues are connected are either by conflict and climate, both drive hunger and displacement while also damaging water systems and farms. Poverty and weak labor laws allow child labor to persist in the supply chain that deliver cheap food, clothes, and gadgets to richer countries. Border abuse and immigrant rhetoric shift attention away from these root causes and place the blame on vulnerable people instead of governments and corporations. Dreamers, this is how you guys can help. To educate and share, amplify reports from the UN, WFP, ILO, and human rights NGOs on food, water, child labor, and refugee rights, and avoid spreading dehumanizing stereotypes about migrants or refugees. Pressure companies and governments. Support campaigns that demand transparency in supply chains, an end to child labor, and fair trade and climate policies. Support ethical choices. Choose products with strong labor and environmental standards. Reduce waste, especially food, and support organizations that provide food, water, and legal aid to refugees and displaced people. Speak up online. When you see jokes or rhetorics that justify border abuse or xenophobic wisdom, respond with basic facts about how hunger, violence, and water stress push people to move. Global food insecurity, water shortages, child labor in supply chains, and refugee crisis with border abuse are not distant or abstract problems. They are signs that the world's systems of production, power, and protection are deeply unbalanced. Millions of people suffer while a few profit from cheap food, water, and labor, often hidden behind complex global chains and harsh border policies. Yet, if people choose to pay attention, demand accountability, and support both humanitarian aid and structural change, there is still a chance to build a future where no one is forced to work in the dark, drink unsafe water, or flee only to be met with violence at the border. That is all for today, my dreamers. Thank you for your time and attention. If you have reached until the end, don't forget to spread awareness on every social media platform. Please, this will really help the people, especially the societies and community that is going through these rough things that I have mentioned. This is the end of the video, dreamers. This is Hallucynations signing off.